In the vastness of space, the Galactic Empire stood tall and proud. They had the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, a collection of enormous warships equipped with the latest technology and weapons. The Empire ruled over many worlds, and their fleet was a symbol of fear and respect. No one dared to challenge them. Everyone believed they were unbeatable. On the edge of the Empire's territory, a small human ship called the USS Valor quietly prepared for battle. This ship was much smaller than the giant vessels of the Empire, but it was packed with surprises. The crew of the USS Valor was diverse, made up of people from all walks of life. They were engineers, soldiers, scientists, and dreamers. Their leader, Captain Sarah Lane, was known for her courage and cleverness. As the USS Valor approached the Empire's fleet, the crew felt a mix of excitement and fear. They had heard the stories of the Empire's power, and many believed they were outmatched. However, Captain Lane had a different vision. She knew that even the smallest ship could achieve great things. She stood before her crew, her eyes shining with determination. "Listen up, everyone," she said, her voice strong and clear. "We may be small, but we have something they don't. The heart of humanity. We can outsmart them. We can surprise them. Today we will show the Empire that they should not underestimate us." The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by her words. They knew they had the skills to succeed, but it would take every ounce of their bravery and teamwork. Captain Lane gathered her officers around the holographic display on the bridge. The display showed the massive fleet of the Empire, a daunting sight. "Look at those ships," she said, pointing at the towering vessels. "They think they are invincible. But we have our own strengths. We are quick, we are smart, and we can adapt to any situation. Our technology may not be as advanced, but we have something better, our determination." As the USS Valor moved closer, they received a transmission from the Empire. The screen flickered to life, and an arrogant officer from the Empire appeared. He wore a bright uniform adorned with medals, a smirk on his face. "Look at the tiny human ship," he sneered. "What do you think you can do against the might of the Galactic Empire? You're nothing but a relic of the past. Prepare to be crushed." The crew felt anger rise within them. They knew they had to respond, and Captain Lane's eyes narrowed with determination. "They think they can bully us," she said. "We will not back down. We will fight with everything we have." Captain Lane ordered the crew to prepare for battle. They set their course, and the USS Valor moved forward, ready to engage. The crew was tense but focused, each person knowing their role. They checked their weapons, powered up the engines, and adjusted their shields. As the USS Valor drew nearer, Captain Lane gave one last order. "Remember, we are fighting not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. Let's show them what we can do." The crew responded with cheers, their fear replaced by courage. They were ready to face the might of the Empire. The USS Valor surged ahead, determination in every part of the ship. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Empire had noticed the human ship and was preparing to respond. "They've spotted us!" shouted one of the officers. The tension in the air grew thick as everyone braced for the battle ahead. "Steady!" Captain Lane commanded. "Let's use our speed and tactics to our advantage. We will not fight like them. We will outsmart them!" The USS Valor was now in range, and the first shots were fired. Laser beams lit up the dark expanse of space, and the battle for survival began. The crew of the USS Valor had a daunting task ahead of them, but their spirit was strong, and they were ready to face the Galactic Empire head-on. In that moment, they knew they were not just a small ship. They were a symbol of hope and defiance against tyranny. The challenge had begun, and they would fight with all their might. The USS Valor soared through the darkness of space, its crew filled with a mix of adrenaline and anxiety. Captain Sarah Lane stood at the bridge, her eyes fixed on the enormous fleet of the Galactic Empire ahead. The sight of the massive ships was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Each one was like a giant beast, armed and ready to fight. Yet the crew of the USS Valor knew they had to act boldly. "Captain, we are approaching firing range," reported Lieutenant Mia Chen, the ship's tactical officer. Her fingers danced across the controls, tracking the movements of the enemy fleet. "They haven't yet reacted to our presence. It's now or never." Captain Lane nodded, her heart pounding with anticipation. "All right, everyone. This is our chance. Prepare to engage the enemy." She took a deep breath and focused her mind. "We will show them that humans are not to be underestimated." As the crew followed her orders, a sense of unity filled the bridge. They were working together as one, ready to prove their strength. Captain Lane looked at her crew, each person determined to fight for their home and their future. She knew they could make history today. "Fire the first shot!" she commanded. With that, a brilliant beam of energy shot out from the USS Valor, piercing the blackness and striking one of the smaller Empire ships. The enemy crew was caught off guard. Alarms blared as they scrambled to respond. "Direct hit!" cheered one of the crew members, and the bridge erupted in excitement. However, the Empire did not take long to retaliate. The larger ships of the fleet began to turn their weapons towards the USS Valor. "They're coming after us!" shouted Mia, her eyes wide with concern. "Keep us moving! Use evasive maneuvers!" Captain Lane shouted. The ship shuddered as the crew worked frantically to keep their balance. They had trained for this, but nothing could prepare them for the reality of battle. The USS Valor darted left and right, narrowly avoiding incoming fire. The crew was filled with adrenaline, their hearts racing as the ship danced between enemy blasts. Captain Lane watched closely, her mind calculating the best moves to outsmart the larger ships. "Now deploy the decoys," she ordered. The crew activated small drones that shot away from the ship, creating a flurry of targets for the Empire's weapons. The larger ships turned their focus to the decoys, allowing the USS Valor to slip away momentarily. "Excellent work," Captain Lane praised her team, feeling a wave of pride. "Now let's get back in there. Aim for their engines." The crew refocused on their mission, their spirits high. The USS Valor swooped back into the fray, firing again at the Empire fleet. The energy beams struck true, and one of the larger ships began to falter, smoke billowing from its engines. Cheers erupted on the bridge once more. "Captain, they're regrouping," Mia warned. "They're sending their larger ships after us." Captain Lane clenched her fists. "We can't let them corner us. We have to keep moving. Our strength is our speed." As the battle raged on, the USS Valor darted through the enemy ships, weaving in and out with precision. The crew worked like a well-oiled machine, following Captain Lane's every command. They launched torpedoes, fired their lasers, and deployed more decoys to confuse the enemy. Suddenly, an alert sounded from Mia's station. "Captain, the flagship is targeting us!" Captain Lane felt her heart drop but quickly pushed her fears aside. "All crew, brace for impact!" She steadied herself, determined to lead her crew through this storm. A massive blast hit the USS Valor, and the ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered and alarms blared. The crew gasped as they struggled to regain control. "Damage report!" Captain Lane shouted. "We've lost power to the starboard engine," shouted the engineer. "We can still fight, but we need to stabilize." "Do it! We're not giving up!" Captain Lane rallied her crew, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We're humans, and we never back down." With renewed determination, the crew worked hard to stabilize the ship. They adjusted the power flow, and slowly but surely, the USS Valor regained its speed. Captain Lane gripped the controls tightly, focusing on the enemy flagship looming ahead. "Let's finish this," she declared, and the crew roared in agreement. The USS Valor, battered but unbroken, surged forward, ready to face the Empire's might head-on. Today, they would not just fight, they would make their mark on history. The battle in the cold depths of space intensified as the USS Valor darted between the massive warships of the Galactic Empire. Captain Sarah Lane stood resolute at the bridge, her heart racing as the crew continued to maneuver through the chaos of lasers and explosions. "Status report!" she shouted over the loud alarms and vibrations of the ship. "Starboard engine is stable, Captain. Shields are holding at 60%. Lieutenant Mia Chen responded, her fingers flying over the controls. "But they're targeting us again. Incoming fire!" The bridge crew braced themselves as another blast hit the ship, shaking it violently. Sparks flew from the overhead lights, and the atmosphere grew tense. Captain Lane clenched her jaw. They had to maintain their composure. Panic would only lead to defeat. "Return fire! Aim for their weapon systems," she ordered, her voice steady. "We can't let them hit us again." The crew sprang into action, their faces filled with determination. The USS Valor swung back around, its weapons firing in a rapid succession of bright blasts. Each shot found its mark, and one of the enemy cruisers erupted in flames, disintegrating into a cloud of debris. Cheers erupted in the bridge, but Captain Lane remained focused. "Stay sharp! We still have a fight on our hands," she reminded her crew. The Empire was not finished yet. As the battle raged on, Captain Lane spotted the flagship of the Galactic Empire, a massive behemoth of a ship at the center of the fleet. Its powerful weapons glowed ominously, preparing to unleash destruction. Lane felt a wave of determination wash over her. "That's our target! We need to take it down!" Mia nodded, her expression fierce. "We'll have to break through their defensive line first. It's going to be risky. Risk is part of the game. Let's do it!" Captain Lane declared, her heart pounding with anticipation. The USS Valor charged forward, weaving through enemy fire. The crew worked together flawlessly, adjusting their tactics as they moved. They used the smaller ships of the Empire as cover, dodging and striking in swift motions. "Now cut to the left!" Captain Lane shouted as they approached the flagship. The ship's engines roared as they turned sharply, avoiding a volley of incoming fire that struck the enemy ship behind them. "Targeting the flagship's engines!" shouted the weapons officer. The ship's cannons fired again, sending beams of energy crashing into the massive ship. The flagship trembled under the assault, but it did not fall. "They're returning fire!" Mia yelled, urgency in her voice. "Brace for impact!" The USS Valor was hit again, sending another shudder through the ship. The lights flickered and smoke began to fill the bridge. The crew coughed but kept their focus. "We can't give up!" Captain Lane shouted, waving away the smoke. "We need to keep attacking! Reinforcing shields!" shouted the engineer. The crew worked tirelessly, quickly stabilizing their defenses. The flagship was still in their sights, but the Empire was closing ranks, forcing the USS Valor into a more dangerous position. "Captain, they're flanking us!" warned Mia, pointing at a group of smaller ships moving in from the side. "We're surrounded!" As the brilliant explosion of the flagship faded into the darkness of space, Captain Sarah Lane felt a surge of hope wash over her, but she quickly shook it off. The battle was far from over. The remaining ships of the Galactic Empire began to regroup, their formation tightening like a noose around the USS Valor. "Captain, we've taken out their flagship, but they're sending in reinforcements," Lieutenant Mia Chen warned, her voice steady despite the urgency in the air. The tension in the bridge was palpable, as every crew member felt the weight of the situation. "Prepare for another wave. All weapons at the ready," Captain Lane commanded, her heart pounding. "We must hold them off at all costs." The crew members focused intensely on their tasks, their eyes glued to their screens. The USS Valor was battered and bruised, but it was still operational. They had proven their strength before, and now they had to do it again. The remaining ships of the Empire began to launch their assault, firing at the USS Valor with renewed fury. The bridge shook with each impact, and alarms blared as the shields flickered dangerously low. Captain Lane gripped the console tightly, her jaw set in determination. "Redirect power to the shields! We can't let them break through!" she shouted. The crew quickly obeyed, pouring every ounce of energy into their defenses. The ship shuddered but held strong against the onslaught. "Reinforcements are here!" Mia announced, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's the USS Hope and USS Freedom. They've come to assist us!" The sight of the two ships brought a wave of relief to the crew. The USS Hope, known for its heavy artillery, and the USS Freedom, famed for its speed and agility, joined the fight alongside the USS Valor. The three ships formed a triangle, creating a barrier against the oncoming fleet. "Let's make sure they know we're not backing down," Captain Lane encouraged her crew, her voice a rallying cry. "Fire at will!" The three ships unleashed their firepower, creating a storm of energy beams that lit up the darkness. The crew worked together seamlessly, each ship supporting the others. Explosions erupted among the enemy vessels, and the tide of battle began to shift in their favor. "Look out! They're trying to flank us!" Mia yelled. A group of enemy ships was attempting to circle around the USS Valor, aiming to cut them off from their allies. "Engage evasive maneuvers!" Captain Lane shouted. "We need to keep them guessing." The USS Valor moved swiftly, dodging incoming fire while returning shots of its own. The crew remained focused, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They had come too far to let the Empire win now. "Captain, we've damaged their left flank," the weapons officer reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "They're losing formation." "Good! Keep the pressure on them," Captain Lane replied. The Empire ships were beginning to show signs of panic as their ranks thinned. With the USS Hope and USS Freedom at their side, the USS Valor pushed forward, determined to drive the Empire back. Captain Lane knew this was their moment, and they had to seize it. Suddenly, an enemy dreadnought loomed before them, its guns blazing. "Prepare for impact!" Mia shouted as they braced for the inevitable. The dreadnought fired a devastating shot that struck the USS Valor, sending it careening off course. The lights flickered and smoke filled the bridge as alarms blared. "Damage report!" Captain Lane shouted, her heart racing. "We're down to 30% shields. Engines are functional but losing power," came the engineer's voice, strained but clear. "Keep them online! We can't give up!" Captain Lane shouted, determination burning in her eyes. She refused to let her crew lose hope. "We're still in this fight!" The crew rallied around her words, their resolve renewed. "All ships focus fire on that dreadnought," she commanded. The USS Hope and USS Freedom responded immediately, their cannons firing in unison. The dreadnought began to falter under the onslaught. "It's working! Keep it up!" Captain Lane shouted, her heart racing with the thrill of battle. With one last effort, they combined their firepower into a single devastating shot. The energy beam shot forth, piercing the dreadnought's defenses. It exploded in a blinding flash, sending shockwaves through the surrounding area. Cheers erupted on the bridge of the USS Valor as the crew celebrated their victory. But there was no time for rest. The remaining ships of the Galactic Empire were regrouping for one final assault. "Get ready! This is it!" Captain Lane urged her crew, her heart pounding. The Empire would not back down easily, and they needed to prepare for the fight of their lives. "Let's end this once and for all," she declared. The crew responded with a roar of agreement, and the USS Valor braced itself for the final stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. They would fight together, standing firm against the darkness that threatened to consume them. This was their moment, and they would not let it slip away. "Then we'll break through! All crew, prepare for evasive maneuvers," Captain Lane commanded. "We need to get to that flagship!" The crew's determination swelled, and they worked in perfect harmony, each person playing their part. The USS Valor darted in and out of enemy fire, dodging laser blasts and returning fire as they moved. Captain Lane focused on the flagship, her mind set on victory. "Now, aim for the engines again," she shouted. The crew fired with precision, and the energy beams struck true. The flagship trembled violently, its engines sparking and sputtering. It was a small victory, but it fueled the crew's fire. "We're weakening them," Mia shouted, excitement in her voice. The Empire's ships were becoming disoriented. With renewed hope, Captain Lane saw an opportunity. "Push forward! We can take them down!" The USS Valor surged ahead, weaving through the chaos. The flagship was now limping, struggling to maintain its position. The crew cheered, their spirits high as they witnessed the tide turning in their favor. "Let's finish this!" Captain Lane urged, determination filling her voice. The USS Valor bore down on the flagship, its cannons primed and ready. With one last push, they launched a final attack, pouring all their remaining power into a single strike. The energy beam erupted from the ship, piercing through the flagship's defenses. Time seemed to stand still as the shot connected. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending shockwaves through the space around them. The crew erupted in cheers, their hard work and bravery paying off. Captain Lane felt a rush of pride. They had done it. The USS Valor had stood up to the might of the Galactic Empire and emerged victorious. But the battle was not yet over. Many more enemy ships remained, and they were still in danger. "Prepare for the next wave!" she shouted, her voice filled with determination. The crew was ready to fight on, standing together against the darkness of the Empire. This was only the beginning, and they would not back down. The final battle had raged on for what felt like hours. The cold void of space alive with explosions and flashes of energy. Captain Sarah Lane stood on the bridge of the USS Valor, sweat dripping down her brow as she watched the chaos unfold before her. The crew had fought bravely, but the remnants of the Galactic Empire were relentless. "Captain, we've taken heavy damage," shouted Mia Chen, her voice filled with urgency. "Shields are almost down, and our weapons are at half capacity. Divert all remaining power to the shields," Captain Lane commanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "We need to hold on just a little longer." The USS Valor trembled as another blast struck the hull. The lights flickered ominously, and the crew exchanged worried glances. Lane could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. They had come so far, but the fight was far from over. Suddenly, the display on the bridge lit up with an alert. "Captain! A new fleet is coming out of hyperspace!" shouted the tactical officer. The crew turned to look at the screen, and gasps filled the room. More ships were emerging, but they were not enemy vessels. "It's the Federation!" Mia exclaimed, recognition lighting up her face. The familiar ships of their allies, together in solidarity, joined the battle, filling the void with hope. "Communications! Get me in contact with the Federation!" Captain Lane ordered, her heart racing. Moments later, a holographic image of Admiral Walker appeared before them. His expression was fierce but filled with determination. "Captain Lane, we received your distress signal. We're here to support you." "Thank you, Admiral. We need every ship we can get," Lane replied, relief flooding her voice. "The Empire won't stop until they've destroyed us all. Let's show them what we can do," the Admiral replied, a fire igniting in his eyes. "Onward!" The Federation ships moved into formation, joining the USS Valor and its allies. The combined strength of the forces was a sight to behold, and Lane felt a renewed sense of hope. "Ready weapons! Let's finish this!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the bridge. The crew cheered, adrenaline pumping through their veins as they prepared for the final push. As the newly arrived ships entered the fray, they unleashed a storm of fire upon the remaining Empire vessels. The once unstoppable fleet began to falter, their formations breaking apart under the onslaught. The Empire ships were no longer a single, united force. They were scattered, desperate to regroup. "Target their command ship!" Captain Lane commanded. If they could take out the leadership of the Empire, the rest would crumble. The crew moved quickly, focusing their firepower on the flagship of the Empire. The USS Valor and its allies pressed forward, pushing through the chaos of battle. Lane felt a fierce determination surge within her. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the future of all free people in the galaxy. "Steady! Aim! Fire!" she shouted as they unleashed their combined weapons on the command ship. Energy beams collided with its shields, causing them to flicker and dim. The enemy crew was in a panic, and Lane could see the despair on their faces through the view screen. The USS Valor pressed on, relentless. The command ship shuddered under the assault, and then it finally broke apart in a brilliant explosion. The sight brought cheers from the crew. But Lane knew they had to keep pushing. The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, trying to escape the overwhelming force of the Federation and the USS Valor. One by one, the Empire ships surrendered or fled. As the battle subsided, a sense of calm washed over the crew. They had done it. The Galactic Empire had been defeated, and they were still standing. "Report!" Captain Lane shouted, her heart racing with excitement. "All enemy ships have retreated or surrendered, Captain," Mia replied, a broad smile on her face. "We've won!" The crew erupted in cheers, hugging each other and celebrating their victory. Captain Lane couldn't help but smile, her heart swelling with pride for her crew. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. As the stars twinkled outside the view screen, Captain Lane turned to her crew. "This victory is not just for us. It's for every planet that the Empire sought to control. We will build a new future together, united against tyranny." The crew nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The battle was over, but a new journey was just beginning. The Federation would work to restore peace and rebuild what had been lost. With hope in their hearts, the crew of the USS Valor set course for home. They were weary but filled with pride. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would stand strong, no matter the challenge. As they ventured into the vastness of space, they knew they had secured a new dawn, a dawn of freedom, unity, and hope for all.